October 17th. That was the official day here in Canada where we legalized cannabis on a federal scale. It's quite exciting times up here. There was the gold rush back in, the late 1800s, and up here we currently have the green rush. But on an international level, move towards legalizing medical cannabis or recreational cannabis is definitely becoming prolific.
Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report Spotlight. Today we have a new guest, Lucas Birdsall. Lucas acts as an advisor in a non-official capacity with International Cannabis Corporation, and I am very happy to have him on the X22 Report Spotlight. Lucas, welcome to the Spotlight.
Hey, Dave, thanks for having me. Really appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for being on here. And I just wanted to start off and, get people, give them a little bit of knowledge of what you're all about, what you've been doing, and how you fit into the International Cannabis Corporation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I do act in an advisory capacity to ICC International Cannabis Corp. Professionally, I'm a capital markets consultant. And what I do is I help the issuer source, evaluate, and ultimately execute on different types of deals, whether that's the acquisition of a cultivation asset in X international jurisdiction, whether it's meeting with management teams around the world, or whether it's working with local consultants to make sure that we can actually execute on our operational plans. That's kind of my role in a nutshell.
Great. And I wanted to start off, because we're seeing, cannabis, it's becoming legal in many different states here in the U.S. and in Canada, it just became legal. And I wanted to ask you this, is there a worldwide trend to make cannabis legal, and why is this happening?
That's a great question. First and foremost, yesterday, October 17th, that was the official day here in Canada where we legalized cannabis on a federal scale. It's quite exciting times up here. There was the gold rush back in, the late 1800s, and up here we currently have the green rush. But on an international level, the move towards legalizing medical cannabis or recreational cannabis is definitely becoming prolific. We're seeing many European countries, whether it's Greece, whether some of the other southern European countries that are in dire need of some tax revenue. And studies have shown that enabling and fostering an environment that is, willing to bring in cannabis cultivation, cannabis exports, cannabis imports, cannabis extraction methods can help drive those tax revenues, Dave.
What other countries are looking to legalize cannabis right now? We have Canada. Canada is the second country that legalized it, correct?
That is correct. Uruguay was first, and that was a couple of years ago.
Okay. Are there any other countries that are looking to completely legalize cannabis?
Completely legalize, it's going to be a slow-moving trend, but we're definitely seeing the proliferation of medical cannabis legalization. I know a couple months ago, Greece, which ICC does have two different assets in, they've moved towards medical cannabis legalization. Obviously, Portugal, many of the European countries, CBD consumption and CBD production extraction is legal, as well as South Africa about a month ago. They legalized the recreational use and cultivation of cannabis. So we're definitely seeing the trend going in the right direction. And in this business, the trend is your friend, right, Dave?
That is absolutely right. And you mentioned about tax revenue, and with the legalization, with tax revenue, you're saying that this is going to help the economies of countries.
It most definitely is. And also from an employment perspective, cannabis cultivation operations, they do require a tremendous amount of manpower and workforce. It's not an industry yet that has been totally automated. And that comes from, every aspect of the vertically integrated scale, whether it's importers, exporters, whether it's farmers, whether it's people that are required to actually bring in the fertilizer, the hydroponics, the growing equipment. This is kind of an industry that requires that requires an effort from all different types of employment professionals.
The company that you advise right now, the International Cannabis Corporation, ICC, what is your mission with this company?
And ICC's mission, our mission is to become the world's first vertically integrated international pure cannabis play. Now, up here in Canada, you can purchase a cannabis asset, but regrettably, because of the way the industry has been heading, you have to pay quite a premium. Down in the States, you're still able to scoop up some cannabis assets for a discount. And that's just because there's really no consistency from state to state. Obviously, California has different types of regulations than, say, a Maine. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the real bargains are in the international sphere. Many countries are really just kind of heading in this direction. And ultimately, it's ICC's objective to formulate a robust portfolio of holding companies, of assets, something that we can ultimately buy, build, and eventually operate and sell. That's our mission in a nutshell, Dave.
So what jurisdictions does ICC currently hold cultivation licenses?
We currently have 5, and there are many along the way. I'll just quickly list them off for you. First and foremost, we have a cultivation, production, manufacturing license in Denmark. We are one of 12 companies that hold cultivation licenses there. Our entrance into Denmark, it mirrors industry peers such as Canopy, such as Aurora, such as the Supreme Cannabis Company. And these are behemoths within the industry. And their market caps are quite larger than ours. So I think we're definitely going to see some appreciation and value for our company over the next 6, 12, 18 months. After Denmark, we have a cultivation and production license in Colombia. We just broke ground on what we're calling the Cannabis Center of Excellence. Now, that's kind of an incubator where cannabis professionals from around the world, whether they're growers, whether they're geneticists, whether they're industry specialists, can come together and work on revolutionary cannabis ideas. That's going to cap off a 13-hectare cannabis cultivation plot. It's going to be primarily greenhouses and outdoor grows. After Denmark and Colombia, we have the Kingdom of Lesotho, which is a small enclave in South Africa. Now, they've legalized medical cannabis cultivation, and we have, I think, one of the first 5 or 10 different cultivation licenses there. And again, we mirror industry peers that are there, such as Canopy and Supreme. So after Denmark, after Colombia, after Lesotho, we have Greece. We have a medical cannabis cultivation license in Greece, as well as an industrial hemp production and cultivation license. Industrial hemp is a very, very exciting vertical, and I think we can probably jump into that later on in the conversation here. After we get to Greece, we actually have one that I can't tell you about yet, Dave, and I wish I will, but I'll give you a little bit of a cliffhanger there. But we're going to be releasing some news later on that the public will be able to see.
I just thought of this. I mean, since cannabis is becoming legal in countries and different states here in the U.S., how does this affect the black market of cannabis? I mean, is this going to be a problem?
Is it going to be a problem? No. I mean, it's going to be a challenge. You're definitely going to see a movement towards the general public looking to go to a retail shop to purchase cannabis instead of off of a street corner. Many of the dispensaries we have up here in Canada are laid out very well. It's almost like going to an Apple store. And it just kind of creates an environment that's more comfortable for the cannabis consumer. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we can control quality assurance. We can make sure that all the products are consistent. And it's just a little bit of a preferred buying experience for the consumer. But at the same time, you're still going to see a black market exist, Dave. It's never going to go away. It's going to kind of minimize slowly, month over month, year over year. But at the end of the day, that is a challenge that the industry is dealing with at the moment.
I mean, by legalizing cannabis, do you think this will start to reduce crime and violence and things like that by legalizing it?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't have the case studies in front of me, but I did read one a few weeks ago talking about the state of Colorado. If I'm not mistaken, I think year over year, alcohol consumption is down in Colorado and cannabis consumption is up. And whether you can correlate that statistics with the reduction in petty crime and violence, I'm unsure. I don't think we have the data sets to do that. But at the end of the day, I mean, cannabis has been prolific in Canada for a long time. I don't want to call it decriminalized, but a lot of the crime prevention. A lot of the police used to look the other way, but on an international scale, I'm unsure. It's a great question, and I think we're going to have to really develop a data set over 2, 3, 4, 5 years before we can make a definitive conclusion.
Okay, so you talked about the different countries that you're dealing with, and I wanted to know, how do you guys plan to bring your products to market?
So one of the most exciting things about ICC International Cannabis Corp is our distribution network. We currently have an agreement in place. We actually own over 50% of the company. And this is a distributor in Europe, and they have access to over 35,000 different pharmacies and retail shops. Now we're gonna distribute our product through those networks, and at the same time we're working on import and export licenses with all the different jurisdictions which we hold cultivation licenses. In South Africa, a proactive measure that we took is we secured an agreement with a company over there, and they have 2,800 different corporate and retail pharmacies. And we're basically going to use Lesotho, the Kingdom of Lesotho, as a production hub. And then we're going to distribute our medical cannabis through those 2,800 different pharmacies in South Africa.
Okay. And what other type of cannabis assets is ICC exploring right now?
You know what? We're looking at everything. I'm not a big fan of the term seed to sale. I think it's been a little bit overused, but ultimately our objective is to become the first international vertically integrated cannabis company. We're looking at fertilizer suppliers. We're looking at hydroponic suppliers. We're looking at vaporizer manufacturers. We're basically looking at any component that can really be brought into the cannabis wheel.
And how big do you think the industry will grow? I mean, are we at the beginning stages of all of this?
Yes, this is an industry in its infancy, and at the same time, the growth potentials I think are enormous. You're going to see mass adoption of CBD across the world. I think some of the CBD medicines are going to replace some traditional pharmaceuticals. At the end of the day, consuming cannabis on a recreational level is a trend that you're going to see further develop, especially with the younger generations. It's something that's almost seeded into popular culture and whatnot. So I do think the growth possibilities are going to be absolutely enormous, Dave.
So are you planning to distribute here in the United States to any of the states that have made it legal already?
No, sir. No, sir. We will not dip our toe into the water yet. We're going to wait to see, for some federal legalization. We're going to wait to see for some consistent regulations across states. But that is not an environment that we're looking to explore right now, Dave.
So with the cannabis industry growing, and it's growing in different countries and they're legalizing it, the job outlook, I mean, is this really going to boost the job outlook in all of these countries? Because right now in a lot of the countries, we're seeing jobs declining, where a lot of the young generation can't find jobs, especially like in France, Italy, and many of the emerging markets where they're struggling to find a job. Do you think this will help in that situation?
You know what, I do, and I can only say that from first world experience. Up here in Canada, we were traditionally a mining community, a mining country, and regrettably, when some of these resources or deposits got depleted, towns that were purely dedicated to mining turned into ghost towns. And because there are some facilities there, some warehouses, et cetera, ample power supplies, we're seeing a resurgence of all these small towns, whether it's in northern British Columbia, whether it's in northern Ontario, with cannabis facilities. And you can look at companies such as Canopy, who they turned the old Hershey factory into a cannabis cultivation facility, and you're seeing a resurgence in jobs. It's really kind of reinserting lifeblood into these small communities that have, regrettably perished over the past 10, 15, 20 years.
So what other uses is cannabis good for?
Well, I mean, recreationally, obviously, it's something that people consume to enjoy, just as you would go to the bar and, have a beer or a scotch after a long week of work. CBD, which is a derivative of cannabis, is actually great for, anti-anxiety, inflammation, pain management. There's a whole swath of different applications it uses. And, I'm not a scientific professional, so, I can't give you a list A to Z there, but there are many different applications. And I think we're definitely going to see some increased adoption of that.
And does ICC, they have a stock ticker symbol?
We sure do. So we're tri-listed. We trade up here in Canada on the Canadian Securities Exchange. The symbol is WRLD, like world. We do trade down in the United States of America on the OTC. Symbol is KNHBF. And then we also trade over in Germany on the Frankfurt Exchange.
Great. Is there anything else that you can tell us about the company or the industry, of where it's headed and what is coming up?
Well, with the company, I think I would encourage everyone to keep some eyeballs on it. We have some very exciting agreements that we're finalizing right now, and we're going to roll out in the next, 4 to 6 weeks. We're going to have a industry veteran who has just sold his first cannabis company to a major for a considerable sum of money. He's going to be coming on the board. And ultimately, I mean, right now we're kind of in the planting flag stage. So if you're familiar with mining, if there's a big discovery, everyone tries to rush around and stake ground around it. Ultimately, right now, ICC is planting flags in every country, every jurisdiction that we see susceptible to cannabis cultivation. So continue to watch us expand our robust portfolio, continue to watch our developments, and ultimately, let's see how we can operate these assets going forward 18 months or so.
Lucas, thank you very much for being on the X22 Report Spotlight. Once again, how can people find out about the company, get your information?
Absolutely. Please do visit our website. You can download our corporate presentation. The website is internationalcannabiscorp.com. That's INTL cannabiscorp.com. And please do follow our stock tickers available on the Canadian Securities Exchange, the OTC, as well as in Frankfurt.
Lucas, once again, thank you very much for being on the Spotlight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Dave. I appreciate your time. Best of luck.